So getting back to it, anyone going in for surgery, they have to test your platelet levels, get your blood type, and they need to test your white and red blood cell levels. Yes, your hemoglobin levels, making sure you have the right amount of hemoglobin, oxygen levels, and that your immune isn't suppressed. So they might have to give you some boosting medication before you go into surgery. Yeah, before you go into surgery, to prevent infection and to speed up healing, they will have to boost your hemoglobins and boost your white blood cells. And if your platelet count is low, then they'll have to boost your platelet count as well, so you don't become a bleeder during surgery. So going into surgery, you should have a certain level of platelets in your blood, minimizing any possible bleeding. And so blood banks can move blood around. This Kenzie house I took to Jen open, and it was a black gentleman who was one of the people running this hotel, and he took us on a tour of the hotel. When I was delivering luggage, I delivered luggage here after it just opened, and it's a sweet, nice boutique hotel. And the black gentleman who was managing, I came back with Jen. After I delivered all my bags, I told her that she loves hotels. And so we went back and we checked out the hotel and walked through it. And he took us into some rooms and showed us around and amenities. It's a very nice boutique hotel. Here's the Harry Carey's house, famous Harry's. And so they have a chicken they pound out. They flatten out the chicken. They pound it out with a meat tenderizer. Then they wrap a brick, and they put the brick, around the brick, aluminum foil, and put the brick on top of the chicken. So the brick conducts the heat and cooks the top side of the chicken in the oven. So they have the bottom side in the pan. You can use this in a pan, and you put the brick on top of it, and you cook the top side. So they use a brick on top of the chicken to cook it, and it speeds up cooking. So here's the Resident Inn by the Marriott. So another boutique hotel, downtown Chicago. So there's lots of places, and I actually stayed in the Courtyard here, downtown Chicago, for one night, and with a girl. It's me and a girl in the room, and then Corey, my friend, got a separate room, and it was nice. The room was nice. It was very reasonably priced. So the Smith, I don't know, that's a breakfast, brunch, lunch, and dinner place. It's new. But Mesro Financial used to be right here. And I used to go into that protein bar. Yeah, I had a meeting with a lady who was part of the River North Association that was efficiency manager, helping corporations find efficiencies to lower cost. And we were me and David met with her, trying to work with her to create some mutual reciprocity, because she could go into banks and that and find efficiencies, paper utilization, ink utilization, other efficiencies to help banks become more efficient and profitable. So this used to be Mesro Financial. So here's another restaurant, but Mesro is a huge Chicago financial institution that no one knows about. They have no boards. So you have huge Chicago insurance companies like Aon and I forget the other one, but there's huge Chicago insurance companies. Aon is one of them. It's a Chicago insurance company. It's a Chicago insurance brokerage, but Aon actually could have its own insurance products as well. And then you have Mesro Financial. And so you do have these large Chicago insurance and financial institutions that are here in Chicago. So there's one on 53 and 90, which I forget, but that's a Chicago institution, and their contract is with McDonald's. So if you ever go up and you're heading out of the city, westbound, away from the lake, and you're on 90, which turns into the Jane Addams, and you get up to Route 53, look to your left, and you'll see the sign for Gallagher. That's it. Gallagher Insurance is another one. They have a contract with McDonald's. McDonald's is Chicago's very own. Yeah, McDonald's is Chicago's very own. That's why we have the historical McDonald's restaurant in Chicago, the McDonald's Museum. But Chicago has a lot of its very own. The Mercantile Mart, the Options Exchange is Chicago's very own. We have the Board of Trade, Chicago's very own bond market, option market, the Chicago stock market, Chicago futures market. We have, in the Midwest, we have the Federal Reserve, the Chicago Federal Reserve. We have our own Federal Reserve Bank in Chicago. We have prestigious schools. Northwestern has their law school down here. DePaul University. Illinois Institute of Technology, which doesn't get enough credit, but it is high-speed trading at Illinois Institute of Technology, plus math, plus they have a great teachers initiatives. You know, Illinois Institute of Technology every summer has this teacher thing where teachers come in to do teaching abroad. Do you know you have doctors abroad? Well, there's teaching abroad. And so they recruit teachers in the summer that come in to go abroad to teach students around the world. My friend Matt King, what did he do? He went to Korea. He's Korean, and he went as a teacher. Matt did what Good Morning Vietnam did, as he was teaching them English as a second language in Vietnam. Oh yeah, Robin Williams. We were teaching people in Vietnam English in Vietnam. It's very important that we send out these programs. As I learned Spanish in America, there needs to be people teaching English in Mexico schools. Yeah, English as a second language. Just like at the University of Arizona, I used to hang out at the school, English as a second language. People from Latin America, from the Middle East, from Africa, my friend from Nigeria, were part of the center, English as a second language. So my friend Matt Kang, he went to South Korea. He met his wife while he was over there teaching English as a second language. Yeah, he graduated from the University of Arizona, then went to South Korea on a teaching designation to teach English as a second language to people in South Korea. And this goes back to the 90s. So he was over there and he met his wife, who is from South Korea. When he was there, he met her, got married, and they moved back to the United States in New Jersey. So his wife is from South Korea, born and raised. Matt was born here. His parents were immigrants. Point being, legal immigrants, like Jen's parents, legal immigrants. And then we have the Federal Detention Center, but this is right on top of the Financial District. So this is the Financial District in Chicago. You have the Theater District, but you have the Financial District. Now, what is missing in the Financial District? What is missing in the Financial District? You have the AT&T building here, and running high-speed fiber optics and all that is very needed for the Financial District. This used to be Printers Row. Right here, this street, Dearborn, and I'm on Congress. Right and left of me, north and south on Dearborn, was Printers Row. How did I find out the name for it? My friend Colby. I moved him from Arizona after graduating down here. I moved him into Printers Row. Here we are on the Chicago Financial District. And so this is Plymouth. And so it cuts through the backside of the Chicago Financial District. Up in front of me is Robert Morris University, Roosevelt University, DePaul University, these institutions. But do you think they have any programs that work with the financial institutions? Now, the thing that was missing, I said, is insurance. Insurance. Now, you can do an insurance sleeve. No one has it. But you can do an institutional sleeve or index of insurance companies. And then you can break it down like they do the S&P 500. You have the S&P 400. You have the S&P 100. They trade the S&P minis, which are a derivative of the S&P that it's cheaper to trade. So the minis, you can have the S&P 500 minis. You can have the total stock market minis. You can have other index minis. So just not the S&P 500. You can have the total stock market index minis. So they're a derivative, and so you can get participation in S&P 500, but you don't have to put up a lot of dollars. That's the point of the minis, allowing people to participate in the market with very few dollars. But they don't, on Charles Schwab and other platforms, they don't do the minis. But the minis are a thing that was here. It's unique to Chicago. So this is the backside. This is Plymouth. And then you have the Standard Club up here, which is a Jewish institution. And I forget where it is, but I've been through it with my Jewish friend, who I had a crush on. I thought she was single. I didn't know she was married, Asha. And originally, I thought David was introducing me because she might be a potential wife candidate. But here's the Standard Club. She took it and I tried to do things, so I found out she was married and she became a good friend. But I really haven't talked to her, but here's the Standard Club. This is the Jewish club in Chicago. And then right next to it, you have Chicago Law School. I think UIC is Kent Law School. But you also have the American Bar Association, or the Chicago Bar Association's right here. But this is the financial institution. And then you have government buildings, but this runs just one way. All the streets run east and west in downtown. A few of them run east and west, but most of them run east or west. So west runs to the Kennedy, east runs to Lakeshore Drive. So easy way that people tell people, if you have eastbound in these streets, I forget which ones, but there's a logic. Chicago's on a perfect grid system. So Chicago is very easy to navigate because the city was built on a grid. A grid. Like, take a waffle. It's a grid. You got perfect east-west and north-south lines like State Street. So Chicago is built on a perfect grid. So streets either run to or from. Here's Robert Morris again. But the funny thing is, and there's a plaque for DePaul University. And then here's the Harold Washington Library. Robert Morris can have a deal with the Harold Washington, so can DePaul in that, and they can have libraries within the public library that are dedicated to these universities. So Harold Washington Library should be open 24 hours a day, and it becomes like at the University of Arizona, the medical library was open 24 hours a day. I used to go to the med library all the time to study in the middle of the night. I got off my shifts late and I went to the med library and studied. And sometimes I fall asleep on my books, but this big public institution can support DePaul, Robert Morris, Roosevelt University, and these institutions downtown. So they can have a deal with them, with the city of Chicago, supporting these academic institutions. So this is a massive library with massive resources that can support these colleges primarily. Now there's the Jones College Prep that can work with them as well. And so the Jones College Prep, high school right down here, can work with Harold Washington Library and do programs for Jones College Prep. I don't know where the elementary schools are down here. In Jones College Prep, does it go from kindergarten through high school? Or is it just high school? I think it's just high school. But I don't know where the elementary schools and if there's any junior highs in the city, which are usually 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, or 7th and 8th grade. So, but they can work with the Harold Washington Library, and then there's other big public libraries like Harold Washington. There's a couple. Now you got the Barack Obama going in, and I can go down that way, but his new library can particularly work with the University of Chicago in Hyde Park, and it can work with Illinois Institute of Technology, and then it can have a reciprocity with the high schools and elementary schools around it. So his library can get integrated into the school system from preschool. They can have all kinds of preschool courses at the library. Preschool, kindergarten, rest of elementary, junior high, high school, and college. So Barack Obama's library that's coming in can be focused. Michelle's program to deal with kids' lunches. And here's the Goodman Theater. See this Lily and Larry Goodman. This is the Goodman Center. But guess what? Here's Roosevelt University. They can have a theater arts program. So could Robert Morris. And in the theater district, these institutions can have a theatrical arts program, and people do internships at the theater, like the Goodman Theater, and there's another theater right across the street, and Stir Soul. So this right here, I forget what theater this is, and it doesn't say anywhere, but the whole point is this is another theater, and it has all its things, but these theaters can have an integration with the college institutions and run theatrical programs at these institutions. Robert Morris and Malcolm X is a distance from here, Malcolm X College. But they can run, here is the schools. What does the, why is the hospitality industry so strong in Vegas? University of Illinois, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, has the #1 hospitality program in the world. And lots of those students go to that school because they end up getting employed in Vegas in all those hotels and restaurants. So, again, Robert Morris and Malcolm X and Roosevelt University can have culinary programs or partner with a culinary school, and they can partner with a hospitality school. You have hospitality management and so on. But also Loyola. Loyola has a medical hospital, but they also have a medical management program. So my friend Hung went to UCLA and got a degree, master's degree in hospital management, I think it was, or hospital practice management. But we have a lot of hospitals in Chicago, so you don't need a medical program, so you doctors and that, but Northwestern doesn't have a management program. So you have to have practice management programs for nursing and for doctors and also for veterinary care. And you have to have people that are trained to be CFOs in hospitals and that understand how to run doctors and nurses and veterinary hospitals, how to understand to run veterinary doctors and nurses. So Robert Morris and these other downtown schools can integrate and do internships in the veterinary clinics in Chicago and the hospitals in Chicago for practice management programs. Practice management programs. So Robert Morris doesn't have to start a medical school. They can start a practice management program for hospitals and so on. Even a medical school needs people who know how to run a medical school, practice management for medical schools. So you can train at Robert Morris and end up working and managing administration for hospitals and for medical schools. You can end up administering the Robert Morris, administering Feinberg, working for Feinberg, and running the hospital, running the medical school as administration. So there's all kinds of administration that's needed. So these colleges can integrate, like hospitality. We have the trade centers, right? You have McCormick Place and all that. So they can also set up designations and certificate programs to work in what am I saying? At McCormick Place and that are convention programs. So they can mention that. Like a guy's wheeling back there and it's counting distance. As he spins the tire, it counts the distance from one place to another. And this is what my friend was going to the University of Missouri for, Dave Brown, when he got killed accidentally, diving in, breaking his neck, and then people trampled him underwater. It's a horrible story. I think about it and I just cry. But he was going to the University of Missouri because in our construction industry, you need people to do measuring. And so you have this, I forget what it's called, but the University of Missouri has a program for these people that measure distances and also create planes. You know, is it going uphill, downhill, or is it waving? And I forget what the profession's called, but we don't have any of our colleges that have certificate and certification programs and also degrees in real estate and in construction management, and different engineering, that's construction engineering. Instead of architectural, where you build the building, it's more about practice management in the construction industry. So an architect needs to work with a practice management so that implements the blueprints and that. And so the architect works with the construction managers. And so we can have degree programs in construction and other things. So there's all these potentials in even property management in Chicago. So there's two lanes. One lane is clearly open. Another lane isn't. I'm in it, but I have to move lanes because they want to speed. So I got to constantly change lanes. Two lanes, you want to go faster, so you go around. It's all called about passing. So there's no preventing them from passing, but they have to terrorize me by staying behind me. That's insanity. So you catch up to me to stay behind me where the other lane is open. You should be passing me. You shouldn't be staying behind me. And here's our cleaning, CD1 and other cleaning like Jen's mom. But is there any kind of formal education programs? So what you're looking for is industries that don't have formal education programs, no matter what the industry is. So somebody came up with bartending school. I went to bartending school. My nephew Ryan went to bartending school. So Kendall College has an experimental kitchen where they train you to wait on tables and so on, and bartending. So Kendall College can have a bartending school, a waiting school, and then you have supervisors. I wasn't to be a supervisor. I was a bar manager. I ran the bartenders. I supervised the bartenders. I did the scheduling and everything. But you also have a head cocktail waitress. So the head cocktail waitress is a supervisor, and then you have a cocktail manager, or a waitstaff supervisor and a waitstaff manager. So you have a manager and an assistant manager. Either you call it a supervisor or assistant manager. So you manager and a supervisor, or you have a manager and an assistant manager. So you get to choose for it. But again, here's McCormick Place. So there's lots of industries that feed off of the tourism business, and this is convention tourism, which brings Vegas its bread and butter, convention tourism. And the thing about convention tourism which is much better because the organizations can vet all their members, and you can work with the organization running people through the databases and vetting them before they even come in town. So with trade shows, it's a more secure tourism. And plus they come with the corporate pocketbook, one, and they also come with the personal pocketbook. So Vegas makes all its money really from convention tourism, because people have two pocketbooks. They have the business pocketbook and they have the personal pocketbook. That client is better than somebody coming on into traveling on vacation by themselves. They just have the personal pocketbook. So convention business is way more profitable, and Vegas builds its whole thing around convention business because they have two pocketbooks. Why did I want to deal with business owners? They have two pocketbooks, the personal pocketbook and the business pocketbook. But think about it. Everybody has the personal and business. Look at Schedule A. Jen was a consultant, and she wrote off things on her Schedule A that were related to her profession. That's part of her salary that's going in, reinvesting into her profession. That's her business pocketbook. So everybody has a business pocketbook. Once you get home ownership, you have standard deductions, and home ownership, because of property tax and that, pushes you up where itemized expenses matter. When you don't have owned property, it's harder to get itemized expenses. So property ownership is critical unless you can work out leases that mimic property ownership, where you get a deduction. So a triple net lease, you pay the property taxes. So you can do home ownership, leasing it, but it's a triple net lease. That means you're responsible 100% for everything with the property. You're only paying a leasing fee for the land. And so you actually do get a property tax deduction. So you can't deduct, but anyways, a triple net lease, you get a property tax deduction. So you can deduct property taxes if you do it correctly. So as long as your landlord itemizes things correctly to you, they can give you the property tax deduction. So how much of your bill you're renting? Well, if your landlord breaks out your rent, and this goes into the securities industry, do you know a mutual fund, a retail mutual fund, you can deduct the cost of retail investing? And I pointed this out a long time ago, but the mutual fund would have to break out the expenses and send you a 1099 or an expense report. I think it's a 1099 or 1098. 1099, I think. But anyways, they would have to send you a expense report for how much you paid in mutual fund fees. So they would have to send it to you, just like a college does. They send you a 1099 for your college tuition. So because they send you this, the specific fees, they itemize it and send it to you, you can deduct it. So Vanguard, with all its mutual funds, or BlackRock, can do specific identification to the individual client, figuring out how much their fees are and send it to them. But when it's generalized and it's just a part, so my 401k, I don't have to have the corporation pay the fees outside the 401k. All I have to do is get Vanguard and other institutions to give me the exact expenses that they pay per individual, what the corporation pays, what the individuals pay for the fund, and I separate the corporation's fees from the individual's fees for the 401k. Then I pass on the 1099 to them. They can deduct it. Even a retirement account, they can deduct the fees from the retirement account, as long, because they are fees, as long as they break out the fees and itemize them separately, even with a retirement account. Yeah, it's tax sheltered. You can't deduct the taxation, but specific identification. And mutual funds, if they do specific identification, and when they cash out mutual funds, if mutual funds do this, they can pass on the losses to you. Not only the gain, they can pass on the losses. So when a mutual fund sells for losses, tax harvesting, they can pass on the losses to the client based on their fractional interest in the mutual fund, and they send them, and it could be a fraction of a penny sometimes, but they have to figure out what the IRS wants it to go down to. Is $5 de minimis, and you wouldn't send it to them. But they do this for savings accounts with banks. They send you the interest, right? How much interest you earned on the savings account, and you have to pay taxes on it. Well, they can send you a form for the fees related to the savings accounts, and you can deduct the fees against the interest. If the bank did this, if they sent you the specific fees that are your costs based on your investment in the savings account. So they can send you your costs for FIDC insurance. Yes. So when you do checking in that with a bank, if they break out the fees and they can send it to the client because they charge the client for the FDIC insurance, now the bank can send it to the client, and the client can deduct that cost for their account, the FDIC insurance. It's tax deductible to the client, but they have to break it out. They have to itemize it. So if the bank is able to itemize, and once you put the program in place, then you can bring the cost down of retail investing and banking, and you can give people these deductions. And this helps who the most? The middle class the most. Sometimes the poor doesn't have enough for the deductions, so you look for carryovers if it carries over, or you look for aggregating expenses to get up over the amount where it would help the poor. So with the poor, you got to look for aggregating and carryover, and so carryover allows you to aggregate into the future. So each year carries over, and eventually they get enough of the expenses, if you keep on tracking them, where they get over the amount where they can start deducting even the poor. But you have to have the expenses carry over. So it helps the middle class the most because they're on the payout. The ultra wealthy eventually phases out of certain deductions, but other deductions they can continue to examine, like your CPA and your financial planner. Do you know if they send you, instead of taking it out of the money, which they do, your assets under management, guess what? If the financial planner sent you a fee, because they're already getting taxed on that income, but you're not able to write off your cost. And so now you can write off your cost. Your financial planner is getting paid out of the blank, just like I get paid for health insurance. But if the health insurance company, the group health insurance company, sent my commission cost to Waltz Brothers, they can write off the part of my commission on the health insurance. They can write off my commission on the Guardian benefits. How much does Guardian pay me for each of the products that are in place? And they send this expense report to Waltz Brothers, and now they can deduct my commissions. Waltz Brothers can deduct how much they're paying me. The 401k company sends how much I get paid on the commission to Waltz Brothers, and now Waltz Brothers can deduct my commission. So financial planner fees, insurance fees can be deducted. When I get a commission on a life insurance policy, the life insurance company can send a receipt to the policy owner for the fee for the life insurance commission. So can real estate agents. You get a commission for $5,000. They send that receipt. You got earnings. They charge you the earnings, and you get the report how much your commission is related to that property. And then you send them out a 1098, I think it is, or 1099. You got a 1098, and you send them a 1099. So one you receive, the other you send. So I think you receive a 1098, you send out a 1099 to the people, you break down their fees into you. You receive a 1098, and you send them a 1099 for those fees. So if they did this by industry, and this helps the accounting field, and this is why you would need an accountant, because you would get all these expenses and all these different categories, and so everybody would start itemizing. Instead of taking the standard, they would start more itemizing. And as long as they carry over, they might not initially start itemizing, but it'll carry over and build up enough, and then eventually they will need to itemize. But I can do all this and know how to do all of it, but I am truly disgruntled. But you can write off these costs, truly. So that's why you take your check, and you know, when you go for a business dinner and that, and a percentage of it is deductible, your expense. And then other expense might be deductible under entertainment or marketing. So you can deduct so much of your food cost as a business expense, and you can deduct so much of your client's cost as a business expense, whether it's entertainment or marketing expense. So you got to figure out that, and the government allows this because the CPAs and that, they get money back. How does the government get money back? By growing business. So now you have more accounting firms, financial planners, insurance agents, brokerage people. You have more lawyers and all that work with all them, and they generate income. So the offset is it creates business, and this is another way taxation creates business. Taxation creates business. So it creates all these necessities for these jobs. These jobs earn income, and that's the give back to the federal government in revenue. So there's offsetting. So one person gets a deduction, another person pays, and there's offsetting, but it grows the economy. It grows the economy. So if fund companies would do this, BlackRock, American funds, it lowers the cost of investing. And it also allows them to charge a little bit more in fees. More in fees, instead of constantly everybody looking to tear down financial planners and insurance agents and that. If we did the right thing and itemize, and yeah, they'll see that you got $800 commission or $5,000 commission or $45,000 commission. Big deal. That's aggregated. And you tell the client, as I told Ann and other retailers like John, this is commission that's aggregated. They take all the commissions you get in the future and they discount them and bring them into the present and give you a lump sum. So you're not making a ton of money. You got to break it down to the servicing over the life of the client. You only get a small servicing fee. Real estate, you don't even get a servicing fee. Once you're done with the client, you still have to service the client. You're supposed to be, as a realtor, working with the client every so often. They do a CMA for them, a comparative market analysis. You let them know how their equity's growing. Truly, the equity, they have an upcoming project. They want to do a bathroom renovation or a room expansion, or they're thinking of leasing. Well, you're working with the realtors and they're doing market analysis on how much can you rent that room for. Truly. Or they do market analysis on how much properties are getting rented for if you're going to do an Airbnb like Pete does. His basement apartment, he rents out as Airbnb. Now, or I should say his upper level he rents his Airbnb, he lives in the basement apartment. So he rents out the majority of the house Airbnb. He lives in the basement unit. He's a single person, and he could live there with a spouse. He has a kid, Vincent. He should have more kids. So if Pete Mangano ever listens, he should be having more kids. He has one kid, not enough. He had a sister. He had 2 kids. I don't know if he had a brother. I think it's just him and his sister, but 2's not enough. 3's enough. So Pete should have some more kids. But the whole point is, he lives in the basement apartment, rents out the upstairs, the majority of the house, Airbnbs it. So the bigger half he gets income on, the smaller half he lives in. So if you buy a 3-unit building or a 2-unit building, you live in 1 unit, you Airbnb the 2nd unit. Or you rent out the 2nd unit, right? You can Airbnb or rent it out. And if you're between renters, put the property on Airbnb or Virgo. Put the property on Virgo. Rent out the property to somebody, Airbnb it or Virgo it while you're looking for a renter. Airbnb it in that while you're looking for a renter. So property management companies should know that. So when they have units that are emptied, they're going to sell them or they're looking for a new tenant, they can Airbnb them, they can put them on, they can take them off at any time. And people can come see them. Even with Airbnb, you can set up a system where people can come and visit the property even if you're renting it to an Airbnb client. You set up a time, they'll be out of the premise, or if they want to be there, they can, but usually they'll be out of the premise, and then you would bring the people by during the time when they're leaving the premise, and you can set up a web camera. Truly a web camera for them on the phone. So you put Ring doorbells in there before the client comes. A realtor can carry a security system, a wireless security system with them, and they set up the web cameras, so they have to have enough for each room in the house, but web cameras are really small, and you can have them with suction cups, not magnets, suction cups, so you can stick them up in every room. So before the realtor goes, and they have the ones with, you put them in the corner, and they have the 360 spectrum camera, the fly's eye or whatever you want to call it. But it can see from the corner all the room. There's no blind spots. So you can put them in the hallways and the rooms. As the realtor, before you get there, you set up the webcams, and then you put it to the app. So if somebody's visiting an Airbnb property, you get there a little bit early, say a half an hour, and you put up all the webcams, you link them up, and now you can be secure on the property with the webcams, and your realtor can monitor from the office. You have a security that monitors all the realtors on premise in the field. They don't want anything happening, and they don't want the realtor stealing anything from the client. You don't want the realtor to have, sticky fingers. So they set up all the web cameras, and you have footage of the house while the realtor's there. And when the realtor's leaving, they take down all the web cameras. And the last web camera is by the front door, going out. So they work upstairs, and they work their way down, and then out the door. And the last web camera, is on their car in the driveway. On their car on the driveway, or sitting out front, pointed towards the front door of the house. And they take them down from the top down, work their way all the way to the last camera on the house that's outside the front door. They take that, then walk back to the car, and the last web camera is on their car. And then they can have a security system on the car where it has its own web camera for the car. So when they beep, beep, the camera gets activated on the car. Or it can get activated by proximity. When they're walking up to the car, the camera gets activated automatically. So when they go to remove the web camera that's looking at the front door back to their car, they remove that. The car's web camera is already on them. It's part of the car security system. So you got full web camera coverage going out of the car, into the house, throughout the house, and then you work your way back out to the car, and you get full web camera coverage. So never a blind spot, you're never at threat. And if you want, the Chicago Police Department can do your monitoring. Yeah, the Chicago Police Department can get into web monitoring and security monitoring. The Chicago Police Department you can get a contract and pay the Chicago Police Department to do web monitoring, and you can pay them an extra fee to do some private security inspections. So it's another way for the Chicago Police Department to generate revenue, so they can compete with private security. Not only do they do the public domain, but if the business so sees it, does a contract with the police department for private security. So that means we already have it in schools, right? So schools have private Chicago police officers that work the security in the school, and the school pays for the police officers. The University of Arizona has police officers from the city of Tucson that work for the University of Arizona. The University of Arizona police officers are paid by the University of Arizona, but they pay the Tucson Police Department. The Tucson Police Department does their pension and everything with them. They pay the Tucson Police Department for these. The CTA, the RTA, they pay the Chicago Police Department for their private security. They work for the RTA, they work for the CTA, they're Chicago police officers, but you can do campus security. Chicago police officers can do elementary, high school, college campuses, and private businesses. They would pay this extra fee, and they can monitor. So the police aren't out. The police can compete with ADT and others. And ADT, if they don't have certain security officers, they can contract out to the Chicago Police Department. They do the monitoring. The Chicago Police has their officers that work on property or do part of their thing. They get paid an extra fee to walk through the property as part of their beat. So they give them keys, entrance, and they passcode in, and then they walk the property, and then they leave and go on to the next. So the FCC can use the Chicago Police Department to walk the property when it's closed, say. It should be open 24 hours, but either way, they can hire the Chicago police officers, the ADT, the monitor, and the Chicago police officer does the physical patrols. And they can put, just like Export, they hired Chicago police officers. But instead of being some private security firm doing it off duty, they work for the Chicago Police Department, and the Chicago Police Department pays them, and it goes into their pension and everything else at the police department. So you don't have to recreate. And so now they work for Export. So I met a lot of cops that work for Export in the gym. Chicago police officers that were moonlighting as a second job security for the health club. But now the Chicago Police Department, like they do with the schools, the colleges and high schools and that, they actually officially are still working for the Chicago Police Force, but they're assigned to Export. They're assigned to Jones College Preparatory. And then ADT does the monitoring, sets up the security systems, because they need somebody to set up the security systems. And now the police work with ADT on consulting for the security systems. So the police works with ADT, which becomes the hardware provider. But that's just one security company, but I'm using an example. And the police hire their people out as consultants, like Monk is a consultant for the police officer. So he's a private consultant, and that's what detectives can be. They can be consultants working with the police. So they can work with the police and help with investigations, specialty people. So they could be former police who retired, or left the police force because they wanted more flexibility and not as much rigor, and so they can pick and choose when they're working and when they're not working. And so you get a lot of older retired FBI agents, CIA, NSA, all those older people have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of hands-on experience. They're perfect to go into consulting. And so they can do a lot of private security consulting with the current CIA. So former agents can consult back to the CIA. And so they do more consulting. They're not in the field in that, but they help bring a wealth of experience back to the CIA. And so you can have sheriffs and Chicago police and that consult back. So the retired people stay in the game, helping the police consult. And so they work with ADT and other security firms looking and consulting. Like we had private contractors, like my friend Derek. He was a U.S. military ranger. He went into Panama, and then he went back to the Middle East, and he worked as a private contractor, and he consulted back to the military. So he was former military consulting back to the military. And so there is roles for all these people after they leave, if they want to move that way, or they can move up into training, the Chicago Police Academy. So part of the academy, you can have the junior academy, the senior academy. So it's a track. You go to college and you go and study law enforcement, and you get your political science, I think. But anyways, your law enforcement track. And then you do the martial arts and other self-defenses. Mixed martial arts has boxing. And so mixed martial arts, you have a boxing professional teaching them the boxing end of mixed martial arts. So it's not Larry Lentz can meet up with my friend Chris or my master Russo, who does multiple martial arts, or his wife, who is 7th degree, maybe 8th degree Hapkido. And they meet up with my friend Larry Lentz, who does the boxing. And so they send their people over to teach them mixed martial arts. They send them over to Larry's boxing academy. And so they train the martial arts part, the Hapkido, and they learn boxing from Larry, the boxing part.